Good Friday evening to you, everyone. This is a winter storm update for this weekend here. Got a lot to talk about here, but first, I'm going to go ahead and share this live out to all my pages here. So let me take a few minutes to do that, and we will get started here in just a minute. And also, while I'm doing this, sharing this out to the other groups and stuff, if you wouldn't mind putting in your city or town that you're watching from, and pretty much give a community or town shout out from where you're watching, so people that may be new to the page know what areas that this page covers. Alrighty, here. So let's go ahead and get started. I just shared all that out, so we are now good to roll here. All right, here is the current situation here. I'm starting out with the basics here. We're starting out with the watch and warning and advisory map. Most of you watching from southeast Tennessee, northwest Georgia, you're under an ice storm warning from Saturday morning through Sunday. That's the time frame for that. And this is for ice amounts of mostly a quarter of an inch to a half an inch, with some isolated pockets in some of the mountain areas, possibly getting a little more than that, which would be very, very bad if we get that much. So hopefully we don't get that amount of ice, but unfortunately, when you're under an ice storm warning, it's called that for a reason. There is that potential, especially in the mountain areas, of a pretty rough ice event here, if not an ice storm itself. And then up here to the north across Middle Tennessee, that includes Grundy County and pretty much all areas north and west and northeast from there up to I-40. Winter storm warning for ice amounts of about a quarter to a half inch also there. And even up in here towards I-40, so you could pretty much draw a line from about McMinnville, Spencer, Crossville, and even maybe as far south as Manchester, points north from there. There could also be some snow and ice accumulations. The closer to I-40 you get, that could be on the order of 1 to 2 inches, maybe a little more, especially north of Interstate 40. So if there's a better chance for accumulating snow, it's going to be mainly for areas to the north and northwest of Chattanooga. So, and remember, that's going to be at the onset of this whole wintry precip stuff. So that's going to be in the first few hours if there's going to be any snow or sleet opportunity. And then lastly, across Franklin, Lincoln, and Moore counties of southern Middle Tennessee, as well as Polk out to the east, and also northeast Alabama, you got a winter weather advisory because your impacts are going to be lower, more rainy nonetheless, but you could, in the higher elevations, see upwards of about a light glaze to a tenth of an inch of ice. So that's the watch and warning situation in those areas. Now let's get into the timing itself. So I've skipped ahead here. If you have any like Friday night plans or anything like that, you will be fine. And really, before sunrise tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, you'll be fine. But after sunrise, as you see here, we're going to start seeing the wintry precip move in, and it will likely begin as a snow or sleet mix. So some of you may get some snowfall, some of you may get sleet. Again, that's going to also depend on how dry the air is. So at the very beginning of this, some of this you see out the front edge may not reach the ground, but back out here to the west, the moisture levels will be moistening. So as this moves from west to east here for areas along and west of I-75 first in the morning through about lunchtime, there could be some snow and some sleet out in here. And again, some light accumulations are possible, mainly up across the mid-state and up closer to I-40. So as I said, basically from about Shelbyville, Manchester, McMinnville, Spencer, Crossville, and north. Maybe a light dusting on the southern plateau, but again, the biggest concern is ice, and you'll start seeing that on this map. So let's review the colors here. Snow is in blue, green rain. On this map, it's different from the others. On this map, this purple you see here, that's the sleet, and then you get into this bright red, bright pink color-ish kind of color here. That's the freezing rain. So watch how that progresses here as we go through the day Saturday. So there's your time frame. There's 8 o'clock, 9, 10. Notice by 10, so about late morning here as we approach lunchtime, that mix line is going to start drawing to the north. So areas that are snow, pretty much the farther north you go, the more chances of snow you get, albeit accumulations would be light up here towards Interstate 40. But with time during the day, you're going to notice that mix lifting from south to north across the region. So there's 10 o'clock, 11, noon, and it starts pulling. You may get a breakdown in here to the south and to the east here. So you may actually get a lull in between the precip here to the south and east going into the afternoon, especially across North Georgia and Sand Mountain. But notice to the north, you got the snow. In the middle, you got the mix. You got the sleet. You got some freezing rain in here. And to the south, you either have some drizzle or hardly anything. And that's about noon on Saturday, tomorrow. And then it's with time, as the storm system gets closer from the west, the moisture is going to start thickening up with time. And here comes a very widespread swath of freezing rain where temperatures are 32 or below. And in areas where it's not 32 but above it, you would just have plain rain. You can kind of see that in the green on here, and also this widespread dark pink color here. You could definitely see that freezing rain, and notice the sleet and snow continue to move north. And by sunset on Saturday, the snow and sleet lines already all the way up into Knoxville, Cookeville, Crossville, Sparta, and up over towards Nashville. So that will be moving away, and the ice and rain will be moving in as we head towards a sunset late afternoon and evening on Saturday. And as we go through the evening, nothing much of change through after sunset into the evening hours. Now as we get towards after sunset again, specifically after 6 o'clock or so, notice we start seeing more green in here, so that warmer air is trying to push up. But if you notice here, we still have areas, a lot of areas, either at or below 32, even in parts of the valley. So that's just something we got to keep in mind here, that if it's raining at your location and the temperature is 32.0 or below, you can bet there's going to be some freezing rain. And if you're above 32.0, you're just going to get a cold rain and with no wintry impacts. So again, the difference between an ice storm and just a cold rain, it is only the difference of a couple of degrees in this situation. That's it. Just a couple of degrees either way will make the difference between a rough ice event, potentially ice storm, or just a cold rain. Let's hope we can somehow manage to get above freezing in all areas. But unfortunately, especially for those of you in the higher elevations like Grundy County, Lookout, Signal, Mowbray, pretty much all the mountain areas of southern and eastern Tennessee, unfortunately, a lot of you probably will not get above freezing until around sunrise on Sunday. That's the unfortunate thing of this for those of you in the mountain areas. So this could be a very significant ice event, perhaps even an ice storm for your area. And even in parts of the valley across northwest Georgia and East Tennessee here, as I move this along here, you can see it kind of propagating a little here. If that wedge of colder air, of 32 below air from western North Carolina is strong enough and can push its way west as we get through Saturday night, there is that potential that in the valley, areas that are seeing just cold rain, you could easily switch to freezing rain as it drops that temperature a little bit. So we are going to have to really watch temperatures extremely closely tomorrow evening and tomorrow night across the valley and the mountains here, because if you're below freezing and it's raining, that is a serious problem. Because remember what ice can do, especially once you get up around a quarter of an inch or more of accumulation, that weigh on trees, that can weigh power lines, and that's what leads to that stuff coming down and potentially creating power outages. So we got a lot to watch here, and no matter what precip type you get, it is just going to be a messy weekend. I would definitely not recommend going through with any kind of travel plan or anything. I would just stay put this weekend because it's just going to be a mess. And as we go through the night, notice more green starts showing up. So as we approach sunrise on Sunday, we should start seeing more of this green and yellow. So that means temperatures are getting above freezing as that warm air pushes north. And then the mountains will should finally get above freezing around sunrise on Sunday, the way things are looking. And then everybody's all rain, and it's going to be a good soaking rain at that as we go throughout the day on Sunday into Sunday night before the moisture ends and gets kicked out of here by the cold Arctic air that's going to move in. Now, if you notice back out here to the west, though, Sunday evening, we may have another quick burst of icy mix or something like that here from the plateau and on Sunday evening. But the good thing, the way I'm seeing right now, is that would be a pretty temporary thing. probably wouldn't be too big on that end of things as far as additional ice accumulation or anything be like that for those areas. It would be a quick draw because the moisture is going to get chased out by the cold and dry air once we get into Sunday night. So then the cold becomes the main issue, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So with that said, let's take a look here at the accumulations, and it may take a second for the load. Again, my computer's acting a little funky. Let me put on that for you. Let's look at the snowfall first, and we'll look at the ice. And here we're about to see, there we go. Notice down here around Chattanooga, pretty much no snow accumulation. So I'm going to say it, Snow Dome holds for that end of things. Squatchy Valley, not much. Maybe a dusting across Grundy, Lincoln, Moore, part of Franklin, maybe southern half of Coffee County. And I'll tell you, the cutoff's going to be pretty sharp in here. So, but as I said earlier, basically along and north roughly from about Manchester up through McMinnville, Spencer, north of Pikeville to about Knoxville and north, you do have the potential for at least roughly up to an inch, perhaps up to 2 or 3 inches of snow, if, of course, it can stay that way during the morning and early afternoon up in these areas. But the farther north you go, the better snow opportunity you'll see. As you see up in Kentucky here, if you got friends or family up there, let them know about this. They could easily see up to a foot of snow up across Kentucky because that's going to be their predominant precip up that way, up towards the Ohio River, while the rest of us have this ice and rain mess that we're going to be dealing with here. And sleet accumulation here, not really looking at a ton, as you see here. Most of that's to the north, but some sleet could also be involved, especially in the first half of the event. Now, here's the big problem. This is going to be our main concern here, our main thing here. Notice pretty much almost the entire state of Tennessee is showing a quarter to as much as a half inch or more of ice. Now, this is extremely concerning considering how widespread that is and the population centers this is covering. And even as I said here, even some of the valley spots in here have that same potential on the lower end as opposed to the mountains, but still a quarter of inch of ice is ice storm criteria, and that is just as dangerous as a half inch. So that's just something to keep in mind. So here's what I'm thinking forecast-wise when it comes to icing. For the valley areas, it will range from a light glaze to upwards of a quarter of an inch. Mountain areas, quarter to half inch. Some isolated pockets up there that the freezing rain hangs around longer could get more than that. I wouldn't even rule out a spot getting upwards to 3/4 of an inch, which would be crippling. So for those of you up in our mountain spots like Signal and Lookout and Grundy County, Mott Eagle, Griffith Creek, Spencer, Crossville, those areas, Dayton Mountain, Johns Mountain in North Georgia, you're definitely going to be in for a pretty rough ice event the way things are looking, and especially if temperatures stay below freezing as long as they are currently projected to do. So you guys, unfortunately, are in big trouble. So if you don't have flashlights or anything like that, I would definitely get that tomorrow morning, or at least while there's a lull, or if there's a lull in the middle of any precip or anything, I would definitely take advantage and get that real quick, because you will likely have power outages in the mountain areas and even in parts of the valley if current forecast trends verify when it comes to the freezing rain. So I will say this here. The big thing to note, temperature, temperature, temperature. 3 words. What the temperature is at your house is going to be very key. If it's raining and it's 31 or raining at 29, you got ice problems as far as freezing rain's concerned. If it's 33 or up, you don't have that as much. So that's just a thing to keep in mind as far as temperatures. Now, I don't usually like to ask for people to keep a close eye on temperatures, but tomorrow and tomorrow night it's definitely going to be that time, because. And one thing you will know, like how will you know if that you're seeing freezing rain accumulation? The one thing you will see and really something that you'll notice icicles hanging down from objects, cars, trees, all that stuff. Decks and railings that are open will start icing up. And considering it'll be dark time, it'll be nighttime for a lot of areas here, especially around the Chattanooga Metro and some of the other higher elevations. By the time the freezing rain stuff moves in, you may not see it. on when it comes to decks and railings and stuff. So just be very, very careful, and really, more importantly, just stay inside and just and just make sure you have the appropriate food, water, and all that stuff. Stuff that you don't have to cook, because if you lose power, you're not going to be able to cook anything. So that's just something I want you to be prepared for. Now, none of this is trying to scare anybody or anything like that. This is just to let you know that there is that potential, mainly across Middle and East Tennessee, in Northwest Georgia, in North Georgia, pretty much period, that as well, that we all have run the risk for a pretty substantial icing event, especially if temperatures can stay prolonged at 32.0 or below that. And then, of course, I don't want to leave you folks out in Northeast Alabama here, but your impacts are not looking as big. Your impacts are looking a lot less down that way. That's why you're only under an advisory down there in Marshall County and Jackson, DeKalb. But the higher elevations of those areas, so High Top, Skyline, Pleasant Groves, over to Sand Mountain and Lookout Mountain in Northeast Alabama, you will have the potential for some light ice accumulation as well. And even a little bit down into parts of the valley there around Fort Payne, you might get a little bit too. So just some notes there for our friends down in Northeast Alabama. So let's review the precip types here real quick, and we'll get right to the temperatures, because that's going to be the big story here after this weekend. It's going to be the main headline. It's going to be the cold temperatures, because that's going to be an impact, especially for the Monday morning commute as far as road conditions are concerned, no matter what precip falls. But let's review the precip types here in case you haven't seen it all that. Here's what happens here with rain. Up at cloud level, but it enters this warm layer that goes all the way down to the ground, so it would be all rain in that scenario. Freezing rain, our big concern here, starts to snow at cloud level, enters this warm layer, and is pretty much all rain until it hits the surface that is 32 or below, and then those water droplets then freeze on contact with the ground, and that's what causes that freezing rain and that ice accumulation. So really, freezing rain is not much different from regular rain as far as the rain drops are concerned. The problem with freezing rain is once those droplets hit the ground, it freezes on anything that's there. Cars, trucks, whatever that may be, decks, railings, roads. Yeah, it's pretty rough. And in sleet over here, that's when it starts to snow in the clouds. It enters a warm layer that is not as large as it would be for rain or freezing rain, and then before it reaches the ground, it encounters an air mass that's not too far off the ground that's below freezing. So those rain droplets, those ice pellets or sleet pellets in this instance, as it hits the ground. And in snow, that means it's cold from all the way top to bottom, 32 or below basically, and which would be in this instance if in the beginning of the precip in some areas. This is what it'll begin as, then turn to sleet, and then lastly freezing rain, and then rain. So just imagine from right to left, that's pretty much how this precip is going to go. It's not going to go from left to right. It's going to go from right to left as far as what we will change into as far as precip's concerned. Now let's get into the cold here. Now this is going to be the main headline here after this weekend, because obviously when you got a Arctic air mass like this, it's gonna really bring down some very cold air. But first, let's kind of investigate temperatures over the weekend here. So we will start Saturday. Let me skip that real quick. There's 12Z, so good. Most of us will start out roughly from the 20s to low 30s roughly during the day. And mountain areas, you might stay in the large part of the day, which would be very concerning if you get ice. And we will warm up some going into Saturday afternoon. Notice we have some critical numbers: 36, 35, 26, 27, even a 41 down in Fort Payne and 42 in Dalton. So those down farther south will actually warm up a pretty good bit Saturday afternoon before the precip moves in after sunset down in those areas. So it will take a while for it to get there. But once it does, that wedge of cold air punches in from the east, forces these temperatures to drop some. So you may top out in the mid to upper 30s in some valley areas towards the state line down south here tomorrow. But then afterwards, as we get after sunset, that's going to drop a little. So with that said, if you do drop to around freezing to 32 or below, then you'll have that risk for freezing rain. And then watch what happens here on Sunday. We actually warm into the 40s in a lot of areas during the day. And then as we hit after sunset Sunday night, the bottom drops out. We all drop into the teens going into Monday morning, and wind chills are going to be very, very cold. I mean, we're going to be talking about wind chills in the single digits to mountain areas even below zero going into Monday morning. So very cold then, and highs will probably only reach the 20s on Monday. So we're really not going to get above freezing on Monday at all. So whether you have just rain or any kind of whatever it is on the ground, it's not going to really go anywhere, because going into Monday, it's not going to get out of the 20s. We'll start in the teens and only make it to the 20s, and then again, Monday night and Tuesday morning, single digit to below zero wind chills with temperatures in the teens and also single digits. And Tuesday, as far as Tuesday's concerned, it's really going to be a cold week overall, but Tuesday afternoon we should get above freezing in most areas into the mid 30s roughly. So that's kind of the way things are looking right now. So let me discuss the closings here for you. Go back out of that here real quick and show you this graphic here. So let me read you some of the closings and delays that I have on this map right now. As of right now, and this could change, Athens City schools are closed Monday and Tuesday. Bradley County schools are closed Monday and Tuesday. Cannon County schools, Dayton City schools, DeKalb County, Tennessee schools are all closed Monday and Tuesday. So I'll repeat that again. Athens City schools, and then Bradley, Cannon, Cleveland City, Dayton City, and DeKalb County, Tennessee schools will be closed Monday and Tuesday. Franklin and Grundy County schools, as well as Kimball Christian Academy, will be closed on just Monday for right now. That may change, so stay tuned for updates on that. And in McMinn County, Meigs, Polk, Ray, Richard Hardy, those schools will also be closed Monday and Tuesday. Tullahoma City schools will be on remote learning. And then Winchester Christian Academy will be closed. That's the list I have as of this evening as far as school closings is concerned. That'll be updated here throughout the weekend. I know a lot of systems like Hamilton County and others have made announcements saying that they will announce their decisions on Sunday. So by that point, I should be able to have a full list and all that. So that way I'll have everything covered by that point. So that way it'll put a reminder there that schools are closed and what counties locally here. So remember, I cover 30 different counties here in 3 states roughly. So the counties that are in my coverage area are the ones that I report the closings for. But I did put a disclaimer in the comments of that school closings post that because I know many of you likely have kids, relatives, family, or friends that you know that work or go to school at like MTSU, Vandy, or Tennessee Tech, UTK, UTC, etc. If any of those schools announce any kind of closings or delays or anything next week, I will also include that as well. So that will be included there as well. So that's the game plan on that sort of thing. So that's the way things are looking on that end as far as school closings are concerned. But again, for those of you just tuning in, there's your warning situation. Winter storm warning for pretty much all of Middle Tennessee from Grundy County north and west. That includes also Coffee County, Cannon, Warren, Van Buren, DeKalb, Tennessee, White, Cumberland, and up towards I-40 basically, Nashville, Cookeville, Putnam County, Davidson County, that area, Rutherford County, Murfreesboro. And then out here to the east and south, across southeast Tennessee, including the Chattanooga metro area, and down into northwest Georgia and the Squatchy Valley, you're under an ice storm warning. And then across southern Middle Tennessee from Lincoln, Moore, and Franklin counties to the south and the North Alabama, you're under a winter weather advisory. So that's the current warning and advisory situation in those areas. So just to put some reminders there. So with that said here, we're going to walk through the timing here one more time for those of you just tuning in. And I'll, of course, have a new update, a written post update that'll go over everything. And we're actually going to get a new modeling here tonight between 7 and 8 o'clock here, so about an hour, hour and a half. So by the time I get that out to you, there will be new information that, as far as like modeling information, hopefully there won't be a drastic change, so that we're pretty good. But as far as when it comes to that in precip types, but the thing is, we will be getting some new information in from the her model as it starts its OZ run here in about an hour. So I should have that up to you by 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, and time in that hour I should have that that written post uploaded. So let's go back and review the timeline again. If you're tonight, no issue, no whatsoever tonight. And this is all going to start after sunrise tomorrow. And again, it will begin more than likely as either snow or sleet. And again, that will depend on the temperature profile in the mid levels of the atmosphere. So we will find out pretty quickly how strong that warm nose of air is first thing in the morning and into about the afternoon. So there was 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Most of the snow part basically from the state line north, with sleet starting to mix in as we approach lunchtime. So here we go about 10, 11. You start seeing that freezing rain and sleet starting to move its way across the state line with whatever moisture is left down that way. Snow up to the north. There's 11. We'll quickly review the colors. Blue is snow, and in this map here, this purple is sleet, and the pink you see on here, that is icing. So with that said, that's the way it's looking here. So there you have it. There's Grundy County. So there you go about, what's this says there? 1 o'clock, moving up from south to north from there. And then by the time we get towards evening time here, so sunset, roughly 5, 6 o'clock, the snow and sleet's all the way up to I-40 and points north from there. And then south of that, simply just freezing rain and rain, depending on your temperature. And there again, that's 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, Saturday evening. And then that's just going to continue into the night. And you'll see here that warm air starting to invade from south to north during the night. So you'll start seeing more green showing up on this map, indicating just rain, moving up through at least parts of the valleys here, west and east of the plateau. But up towards Nashville, they stay pretty much freezing rain for a good bit of it. In Jackson, Tennessee, they may stay ice the whole time out there to the west. But locally, the mountain areas here locally, you probably will not get above freezing, especially from Lookout up north across the plateau, Signal, Mowbray, those areas. You won't get above freezing more than likely until around sunrise on Sunday. So you'll probably be stuck in rain up until or just before that point. And notice when we get towards after sunrise on Sunday, everything becomes all rain. You see the green here, and then you start seeing some yellow and red. So in fact, we may actually have some rumbles of thunder during the day on Sunday. So that will be interesting enough. But this would all be liquid during the day Sunday. So hopefully that'll wash away any kind of ice or anything that would accumulate. That's the hope here. And then we might get towards the end from the plateau and west across the mid-state there. You might get a quick transition back to some icy mix going into Sunday, late Sunday afternoon through Sunday evening before the moisture is forced out by the cold air. But it shouldn't be too crazy, at least for our area. But from I-65 and west with the second thing on Sunday, it could be a little bit more major out there. But the main point to make here, before I sign off here, and actually I'll answer a few questions here before I do. The main point here is be prepared for a pretty rough winter storm that has all forms of precipitation, snow, ice, specifically specifically ice, I should say, not snow, but ice, and even rain on the tail end. So we got a lot of precip types to get through, and it's just going to be a messy weekend. So again, I'll say this again. Ice is the predominant concern. Snow and sleet are secondary and mainly early in the event. And then we go to all rain during the day Sunday. But the biggest thing is get ready. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have flashlights, anything like that, just in case the power goes out and all that. So let me answer some questions here real fast, and then I'll go ahead and sign off. This person says it's his special birthday. Happy birthday, John. Great to hear. You stay safe and warm as well, Janet. What time is it supposed to start around the Jasper or Kimball area? So I'll go back to that here real quick for you. Latest time I have here is roughly around or just after sunrise, so roughly that 7, 8, 9 o'clock ish time window for you guys in the Marion County area. Are we going to get any snow at all in Marion County? Early on, you got a chance. Early on, but then it's going to be a pretty quick changeover within a couple of hours here to this sleet, freezing rain mixture. What is the time frame of it getting bad in Maude Eagle tomorrow? As far as Maude Eagle's concerned, considering you're in the mountain areas there, I'm anticipating the worst of the icing impacts to really be more towards, because we get closer to mid to late afternoon and sunset and into tomorrow night. So really from about mid-afternoon through tomorrow night, that's going to be the worst time period as far as the icing is concerned for Maude Eagle Mountain and the surrounding mountain areas, and even into portions of the valley that drop a little below freezing or right at the freezing mark. And again, you may have some snow early on and some sleet early on, but as far as the main impacts are concerned, that's going to hold off until mid to late afternoon. So pretty much as we get closer to sunset. Let's see, hunker down on Sand Mountain on the Georgia side. Also, let's see here. One person's watching from Corydon, Tennessee. One from Crossville, Bledsoe County. Weather Channel saying 3 to 6 inches of snow in McMinnville. Nah, I wouldn't really necessarily think that. I mean, I think the mix will move in a little too soon before that high end verifies, but I can see the low end potentially verifying, but not as much the high end. You'll probably have to go up probably north of I-40 to find 6 inches, but more like 1 to 2, maybe up to 3 if you get that. And that's if the snow up there can linger around a little longer before that warm air catches up. And that's the biggest uncertainty of this whole part of this thing is, when does that warm layer aloft arrive to start eating into that whatever you got up there as far as snow is concerned, and turn it into sleet and freezing rain and such. So the way I'm seeing it up there is, up there in McMinnville is, you'll probably get a little bit of accumulating snow, but it shouldn't be like too big unless you get a pretty big burst, and those heavier bursts can overperform sometimes. But for the most part, I would expect mostly light accumulation up there. This person says, I watched 4 different weathermen and they have all said different things, but at the same time they kicked me off because I said what you said about the temp. I'm sorry to hear that on that, but I will say that is very important as far as temperature is concerned. I've said it pretty much almost all week about the temperature. This is going to be a temperature thing, period, point blank. Again, if your temperature is 32.0 or below, you're going to have a really good and not in a good way risk of freezing rain. If you're above 32.0, like 33, 34 up there, you won't have to worry about it as much. But there is also this chance. There's also a chance, and this tends to happen when you're in this battle, when we're in this battle zone of different precip types. You might go back and forth between different precip types like sleet and freezing rain and rain. There's always that possibility that you can teeter back and forth between different precip types. So one area may get rain 1 minute, just rain, and then the next hour or so they may have freezing rain and drop the temperature a little bit. So that's especially in the valley. That possibility is there, especially in the valley. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And then let's see here. What will it do at my house? Well, Clay buddy, you're gonna have that ice, and then you got the rain that will follow that potentially. That's going to depend on temperature, buddy. Jasper, Tennessee, reading through here, McMinnville. The rain that comes Sunday and leaves, could there be a flash freeze for Monday? Well, considering temperatures are going to drop into the teens Sunday night and Monday morning, I do believe that anything that's wet out there, like roads or sidewalks or railings and stuff, that stuff's going to likely freeze over. Now, there's one thing that could help that might limit that, as far as like limit any icing, and may help to dry out the moisture a little bit, would be some wind. Now, that's the other factor that I forgot here. The NWS is pretty concerned, and I am a little as well for the higher elevations here. There could be some wind involved, a little bit of that late freezing rain moves in tomorrow evening, tomorrow night. So if that were to occur, that would increase the risk of power outages as well, in addition to the ice accumulation. That's something to keep in mind. But the wind on Sunday night, as the moisture leaves, could actually help. Granted, it'd make it feel miserable outside as far as cold, but that could actually help a little bit and maybe dry off some of that moisture with evaporation. But I would really, especially Monday morning, I would count on some slick spots at least. And by far and away, if schools that are not closed yet, I believe they will close, especially for at least the cold, because it's just going to be downright miserable on Monday. We're not going to get out of the 20s more than likely on Monday. And let's see, make sure I'm not missing anybody else here. I'll have to refresh this just to make sure I'm not missing any additional comments. Lynchburg, Tennessee. Okay, here's one. Starting out, snow and sleet in the morning throughout early afternoon, and then you'll go to ice and rain as the day progresses. Manchester, pretty much same thing there. So Lynchburg and Manchester, same thing, really roughly is about most everybody else. Little snow and sleet early, potentially. Then you'll change over to freezing rain. And if it can get warm enough, and it will going into Sunday, but if it can get a little bit early, then you would get to go to all rain. Do you think we'll get ice in Sparta and Cookeville? Yes. Sadly, yes. You're going to get ice up there also in Sparta and Cookeville. So there will be the potential in those areas also of power outages as well. Husband thinks he's going to work tomorrow. That'll be dicey. I mean, now in the morning will probably be fine, but afternoon and especially towards sunset, that's when things will start getting dicey. Even if it's just rain in some of the valley, even if it were to be just rain down there, it's just going to be a messy commute tomorrow evening. Let's see, Meigs County here, Georgia side and the Sand Mountain. What about 5 o'clock on Saturday? So I can actually go ahead and pan that over to 5 o'clock. And right here, really not much change from what was just on this map. Other than up here to the north, you see all the snow and sleet starts moving away from us by that point in time. And then everything else to the south becomes just freezing rain and rain. So by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock tomorrow, pretty much about almost all of us are going to be in either freezing rain or rain by that point in time. Is the HER model a good model? Is the HER a good model to be looking at in terms of precip, temp, ice accumulation? Yes. Especially the closer you get to an event, the better the resolution usually gets. So, and I trust the HER pretty heavily. I don't really trust the NAM all that much because the NAM tends to be a little too cold. I mean, it's never impossible for that to happen, but usually the NAM is kind of overdoes that cold layer sometimes a little bit. But as I said, it's going to be a temperature profile thing. But I feel, at least so far, based on the way this system has developed so far out to the west, I really feel that the HER is has so far done pretty decent with it. So it does give me some hope for tomorrow as far as like the resolution, all that and everything, timing wise. So let's see here. And lastly, and I got a couple more here, and I'll go ahead and sign off here because I got to get some dinner and get ready for tonight's written post here. What about Chattanooga? Chattanooga's going to be right on the line here. I mean, as far as between rain and freezing rain, y'all are going to be right on the line. There's a chance that areas around downtown may not get as much, and then you don't have to go too far outside of downtown, and you have a little more ice because of that urban heat island effect. So hopefully that UHI can help with limiting the ice, but it's going to be a very close call in the city of Chattanooga for sure. But I'm just going to say you were looking at, I'll call it a rain/ice mix, and that's going to vary significantly on the temperature. If you can stay above freezing, you'll be fine. But the mountain areas around the city in particular and the ridge lines, you're definitely gonna have that risk for freezing rain. And if the valley gets to 32.0 below, you'll have that chance as well. And then lastly, Stevenson here, and then I got to sign off. Your threat of icing is a lot less down there in Jackson County, specifically in the valley area down there. So Stevenson in particular. Again, you may start out little snow, little sleet, and then you may get a lull in precipitation, and then towards as we get closer to sunset, it may start picking back up, and then by the time you get into Saturday night, the precip will be in full effect. Actually, beginning to look more like rain down that way, especially the closer you get towards Scottsboro and all that. So I really feel Northeast Alabama in particular may get out of this pretty safely here, the way I'm seeing things here, barring a last second unforeseen change. But I do have that outlook there as far as the mountain areas of Jackson, DeKalb counties are concerned. You may have some icing up there in the higher elevations, but not so much down in the valley level of those two counties in Northeast Alabama. All right, with that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here because I said I gotta get some dinner and all that, and we'll get ready for the update I'm gonna have up here in about an hour or two. So y'all stick around for that, and we'll have more updates throughout the day tomorrow and tomorrow night and Sunday. So you covered from pretty much sun up to sundown. So that's the promise I can give you for sure. So with that said, I'll see you back here in about an hour or two for a long written update that'll go over everything that we covered here in this video and such. So with that said, hope y'all have a great safe evening, and I will see you soon. Not sure why my YouTube is not down. Not sure why. Excuse me here. For anybody watching on YouTube here, for some reason it's not letting me. There we go. Yeah, my computer